Simon and the Pious Posse. Some years ago, my friend Betty and I were doing our usual motorhome tour of a well-known Mediterranean country. So that's...
It's a well-known one,
yeah,
as opposed to one of those that no one knows about.
Yeah. A Mediterranean country you've never heard of. Anyway, no, it's a well-known one. So it narrows it down a bit, doesn't it, really? Over the years, we had toured the length and breadth of this fine land and found many a stunning location with a history and architecture telling of a once very great nation.
Wonder which one it could be.
On these trips, I get to take my golf clubs and Betty takes our 2 dogs around the local countryside while I get my 18 holes in. That's the way it works. On this particular trip, we adventured to the very far west of this particular famous Mediterranean country and to a very small town I'll call Casa. Could be
literally any Mediterranean country, this, couldn't it? Could be any of them.
Could be. Where the plan was to search for an ancient ornate bridge, which was listed with the town. Whilst trying to find said bridge, I pulled our motorhome over to the right of the road, aware that I was driving a vehicle of some size. So Bobby approves of that.
Yes.
However, upon doing so, I found that A, I had actually pulled over next to the junction I needed, and B, this was one of those odd junctions where you have to turn right to go around in a semicircle to be able to turn left. It's all foreign. Anyway, I managed to navigate it and was just pulling out when suddenly, out of nowhere, and I mean nowhere, a police motorcyclist was right up beside my passenger door and gesticulating wildly to pull over. Hey! 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 He was saying in a heavily accented, generically European accent.
Yeah.
He could have come from anywhere.
Literally anywhere, yeah.
Hey!
Hey!
He was pointing. When we arrived a mile or so up the road to the lay-by where the policeman was parked, he was already off his bike with a tiny pocketbook out, rooting through it, trying to find something relevant to my misdemeanour. But any amount of my trying to engage in conversation to try and understand the problem was just greeted with a grunt and a Gallic shrug. Well, a possibly Gallic shrug could have been a shrug from any area of Europe. He clearly was saying he didn't understand me. Even Betty, who speaks the language, could get no response. Eventually, our policeman, after a long search, gleefully pointed to a page in his little book. And it had his text, the language he understood, with the English next to it. And he pointed, this. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
He meant this, obviously, but because he was generically European, that's basically how it came out. Anyway, the English translation said, going the wrong way around a roundabout. Now, I knew full well that I'd followed the signs correctly, but what made me even madder was that was written beside it in the book, fine equals €100 or €200, and I was absolutely astonished. I'd heard stories that as they've got no money, this is how the police in this part of the world survive. Ah, now you realise
that's the reason why
we're being anonymous. And I was now beginning to fume. Betty gave the officer a credit card and told me quietly, we can try and claim it back when we get home, but I knew that was a non-starter and continued to seethe. By now the officer had been joined by another motorbike colleague who was strutting about the way they do behind the motorhome in a pincer movement, lest I should decide to make a break for it. Hey! You!
Land of hay.
He was pointing.
Yeah.
He didn't want me to go anywhere, this one. Well, at this point, I am practically spitting sparks, especially as there was no interest in my documents or examination of our vehicle to check for roadworthiness. In my mind, this was simply a stop-and-grab raid. However, their plan had hit a snag, as I soon became aware that our man was unable to get a signal to process the card, highlighted by reams of non-transaction receipts littering the lay-by. No Wi-Fi! No Wi-Fi! He was shouting to his colleague.
No, he wasn't.
Sacre bleu! He was saying, Mein Gott! Mein Gott! Gott in Himmel!
Yes. Not Mediterranean, but
generally
anyway.
Europe. No, I know. But he could have... That's true. The other policeman... Anyway, the other policeman joined him, and they both pushed some buttons and waved the machine around to try and get it to work, and after a few minutes of this, finally I could take no more. I just about reached boiling point, determined to do something about the total unfairness of it all. I stormed back to the front of the van, saying to Betty, get ready to go quickly. I then strode up to the two officers, who were still buried in the card machine, ripped two €50 notes out of my wallet, and said disgustedly, "Here's your money." The arresting officer took my cash with another Gallic shrug, possibly from somewhere else, as if to say, "Only doing my job, mate," which is obviously not what he said, but that was the kind of language that he had, and handed back my licence along with a receipt. I snatched it in a huff, headed back to the van, and we were off in no time. As we got a little way down the road, Betty, who could tell by my whole manner that something had occurred, asked with trepidation, "What did you do?" To which I replied, "Well, they got no money, but they can look at them, they can afford to ride around on 1150cc BMW bikes in Perez. And as they can't go anywhere without the other, they're going to have a hell of a job going anywhere without this." I then proceeded to hold up the ignition key.
What?
From one of the motorbikes which had fallen into my pocket.
Unbelievable.
At which point Betty started to practically hyperventilate. I tried to calm her down in the best way possible. I calmly rolled down the window.
No.
And whoosh, out they went into a hedge. Anyway, can I just say at this point that obviously
we don't condone
any of the forms of behaviour that are taking part under our very noses.
Yes, in some undisclosed location. At
this, Betty visibly began to calm, although she still watched the mirrors for several miles, even though she knew they couldn't chase us. Father Simon, I don't seek forgiveness for the thinly disguised highwaymen, because that is what they were. Professionalism and courtesy were definitely amiss, and I'm afraid that was just their due deserts. I can only imagine the explanation when they had either to call for a pickup to get the bike returned to the station or request a spare key. I do, however, seek forgiveness for my poor, unsuspecting travel companion Betty, who took several miles and a large wine to finally calm down, as indeed one would. Well, Fast Eddie, I think that was suitably generic. I don't think we can pinpoint that on any police force, although clearly it's a European police. Anyway, so you can't really behave like that. I think you're asking for trouble, so I'm not sure. I think Sister Bobby is going to be quite stern, but let's see.
I just trying to work out right at the beginning, did they commit a traffic offence? Or was it just because of the size of the vehicle?
Fast Eddie says that they didn't, and that basically they're just after a quick buck.
Because I can't work out why he didn't kind of prove and do a diagram and say this. However, I do understand when you're dealing with the powers that be, that have that much power, sometimes the best choice is just to give in and then get on with your day. Sometimes you have to let it go. And that's what you have to... When you have to do that, you just have to let it go. You have to let it go. You let it go properly. You don't pretend to let it go and then do something else, because that creates a big thing. And I don't think it was right you stole the keys, because that's not allowed, really.
It is against the law in most countries,
I think.
Most countries.
And also, it's one of those things, as you didn't spend enough time explaining to him why you had to do the thing, because you didn't seem that you didn't
wasn't interested.
Well.
He just wanted 100 euros.
Well, no, I understand the frustration, but the thing is you don't make it bigger than it is. It's already a problem. Don't make it a bigger problem. You don't add fuel to the fire. So Fast Eddie and Betty,
yeah,
you're not forgiven. Although I do fancy coming on holiday with you guys.
It's very frustrating when the cop that waves you down actually has the credit card machine in his hand.
Well, maybe that's because it's his job. Is there a chance, Fast Eddie, you went the wrong way round this roundabout? I'm going to say there might be a chance. I went driving in Italy last summer, and the first time you come across a roundabout the wrong way round, it was a little bit of the other side of the brain having to work. So I'm not quite convinced that Fast Eddie was entirely adhering to the rules. How on earth do you get hold of a policeman's ignition key? How does that happen? They're not just hanging around.
Fell into his pocket.
I think Fast Eddie is holding a few things back, but not from me. However, no, I can't forgive. Normally, really? I forgive everyone. I can't forgive this. This is unbelievable.
Well, he is fast.